From the moment Emily Carter was old enough to notice, she understood that she was different. The scar on her face was impossible to ignore. It stretched from just below her left eye to the edge of her jaw, a permanent reminder of a past she couldn't remember. Her parents, Mark and Laura Carter, had always told her the same story. When she was just a toddler, a fire broke out in their home, and though she miraculously survived, the flames left their mark on her face. She should have been grateful, they said. She was lucky to be alive. But luck never felt like the right word. Growing up, Emily learned that people weren't always kind to those who looked different. Strangers would stare just a little too long in grocery stores. Children on the playground would whisper behind her back. Some were more direct, throwing cruel words at her when they thought teachers weren't listening. Burned freak, Two-Face, monster. The first time someone called her that, she went home and cried into her pillow until she had no more tears left. But after a while, she stopped crying. She stopped reacting altogether. If there was one thing she had learned, it was that showing weakness only made it worse. Social media didn't help. Every time she scrolled through Instagram or watched YouTube videos of influencers with flawless skin, her self-consciousness grew. They posted perfect selfies, their faces smooth and unblemished, radiating confidence. She couldn't help but compare herself, wondering what life would be like if she had never been scarred. Would people look at her differently? Would she feel different? Would she finally feel normal? Her parents tried to reassure her, but their words only deepened her frustration. "You're beautiful just the way you are," her father would say, his voice warm with affection. "Your scar is a part of your story, and it makes you special." But Emily didn't want to be special. She wanted to blend in. She had been seeing a dermatologist for as long as she could remember. The appointments were routine by now, a checkup, some new cream, a reminder that these things took time. But time felt unbearably slow when every glance in the mirror reminded her of what she had lost. Even though the doctor insisted the treatments were helping, she barely noticed a difference. It was still there, a constant presence that shaped how the world saw her and how she saw herself. One day, while scrolling through her phone, she stumbled across a video about cosmetic surgery for children. The transformations were incredible scars erased, features refined, confidence restored. The idea lodged itself in her mind like a seed, growing stronger with each passing day. Maybe this was the answer. Maybe, just maybe, she could fix herself. But when she brought it up at breakfast one Saturday morning, the reaction was immediate. Her mother's face went pale. Her father set down his coffee. "You don't need surgery, Emily," her said firmly. "But no," her mother interrupted. "That's not an option." And just like that, the conversation was over. Emily clenched her jaw, her frustration boiling inside her. She wasn't sure why they were so against it, but one thing was certain. No matter what they said, she wasn't going to stop thinking about it. She wanted change. She needed change. And somehow, she would find a way to make it happen. The morning started like any other. Emily Carter sat curled up on the living room couch, lazily scrolling through her phone while her father, Mark, tinkered with a broken cabinet door nearby. Her mother, Laura, was moving through her usual routine, tidying up the house before heading to check the mailbox. Emily barely registered her mother's voice as she announced she was going outside. She was too busy texting her best friend, Sarah, about a new viral trend. A few minutes later, the front door creaked open. Emily glanced up just in time to see her mother return, arms full of mail, magazines, and the daily newspaper, something Laura still read religiously, despite the fact that most people got their news online. She placed everything on the coffee table and started flipping through the pages, her expression calm and neutral as always. But then, something changed. Emily noticed her mother's fingers tense on the newspaper. Her posture stiffened. A shadow passed over her face as she stared at something on the page. Then, as if catching herself, Laura quickly rolled up the newspaper and clutched it to her chest. Emily's curiosity flared. "What's wrong, Mom?" she asked, her voice casual but observant. Her mother's head snapped up. "Oh, nothing, sweetheart. Just some boring news." Her voice sounded slightly higher than usual. Emily didn't buy it. Mark, still kneeling by the cabinet, frowned slightly. "Everything okay?" "Yes, of course." Laura forced a smile, then stood abruptly and walked toward the kitchen. Without hesitation, she dumped the newspaper straight into the trash. Emily's eyebrows shot up. Her mother never threw newspapers away immediately. She usually let them sit on the counter for at least a day, sometimes cutting out recipes or interesting articles. But today she had barely glanced at it before getting rid of it. Something wasn't right. Emily exchanged a look with her dad, who only shrugged, offering a small chuckle. Guess she didn't like what she read. But there was a slight concern in his eyes as he watched his wife. Brushing it off for now, Emily got up to get ready for her dermatologist appointment. Yet as she climbed the stairs, her mother's odd behavior stuck with her. What had been in that newspaper? Later that morning, after her appointment, Emily spotted a newsstand outside a convenience store near the bus stop. Her heart skipped as she recognized the same newspaper her mother had thrown away. Without thinking, she walked over and grabbed a copy. As she flipped through the pages, her hands trembled when she found it the missing persons section. And there, staring back at her, was a photo of a little girl with fiery red hair. A girl who looked just like her. But there was one difference. This girl had no scar. Emily's stomach churned as she read the name beneath the image. Madeline Brooks missing for 10 years. A chill ran down her spine. Her mother hadn't been reacting to boring news. She had been hiding something. Emily clutched the newspaper tighter, her heart pounding. What if the life she had always known was a lie? Emily Carter sat in the waiting room of Dr. Peterson's dermatology clinic, the newspaper tucked firmly under her arm. The discovery from earlier that morning weighed on her like a stone. The image of the little girl Madeline Brooks was burned into her mind. The same red hair, the same facial structure, but no scar. It had to be a coincidence. It had to be. Yet, deep down, she felt something shift inside her, an unease she couldn't shake. Emily Carter? Dr. Peterson's voice broke through her thoughts, and she quickly folded the newspaper, shoving it into her bag before following him into the examination room. The routine was familiar. She hopped onto the examination table as Dr. Peterson adjusted the overhead light, his practiced hands gently tilting her chin to examine the scar. The coolness of his fingers against her skin was a stark contrast to the burning questions in her mind. "The skin texture is improving," he murmured, mostly to himself. "The pigmentation has lightened somewhat, and the raised tissue has flattened a bit more since your last visit." Emily barely heard him. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "Dr. Peterson, why is the scar only on my face?" The doctor paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard. "My parents always said it was from a house fire when I was little. But wouldn't I have burns somewhere else? My arms, my hands, my legs? But it's just here." She gestured to her cheek, her pulse quickening. Dr. Peterson leaned back in his chair, considering her question. "Well, the face does have thinner skin, which can make it more vulnerable in certain cases. But in most house fire injuries, yes, we would typically see burns in multiple areas, especially if you were caught in the flames." Her stomach twisted. That wasn't what she wanted to hear. "So, it's unusual?" she pressed. The doctor hesitated before answering. "It's not impossible, but it does raise questions about how exactly you were injured. If it was a house fire, there should be some medical records detailing the extent of your burns and how they were treated." Medical records? Emily's breath hitched. She had never seen any records from before the age of 3. Her hands clenched the fabric of her jeans. "And if it wasn't a fire?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Peterson studied her for a long moment before replying carefully. "That would be something you'd need to discuss with your parents." Emily nodded, but the pit in her stomach deepened. She had no memory of the fire, no childhood pictures before age 3, no proof of her parents' story. And now, a doctor someone objective had confirmed her worst fear. Something wasn't right. As she accepted her prescription and walked out of the clinic, her mind was a whirlwind of doubts. She needed answers. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she would like what she found. Emily Carter sat at the kitchen table, the tension in the room so thick it felt suffocating. Across from her, her parents Mark and Laura exchanged uneasy glances, their body language tight, controlled like they were trying not to give something away. The air crackled with something unspoken, something just beneath the surface. But Emily could feel it. She had seen the photo in the newspaper, the little girl with red hair just like hers, the missing person, Madeline Brooks. And now, she couldn't unsee it. Emily cleared her throat, gripping the newspaper tighter under the table. "I had my dermatologist appointment today," she said casually, testing the waters. Her mother offered a stiff smile, too quick, too forced. "Oh? How did it go, sweetheart?" Emily hesitated, then decided to press forward. "The doctor said my scar is healing, but something weird came up." Mark, who had been flipping through a magazine, froze mid-turn, his fingers tightening on the paper. "Weird," her mother repeated, reaching for her coffee, but Emily noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the mug. "Yeah," Emily continued, leaning forward. "I asked why the scar is only on my face. You always told me I was in a fire, right? But shouldn't there be other burns? On my arms, my legs? Something?" A heavy silence fell over the room. For a moment, Emily thought they wouldn't answer. Then her father let out a forced chuckle, setting down the magazine. "Honey, it was a long time ago. You were so little. The doctors treated you, and we did everything we could to make sure you recovered." Her mother nodded quickly. "Yes, exactly. The important thing is that you're here with us, safe." Emily frowned. That wasn't an answer. She shifted in her chair, feeling the newspaper rustle against her lap. The weight of it, of the truth it held, burned against her skin. She took a deep breath. "I saw something today," she said carefully, gauging their reactions. "In the newspaper, a missing persons ad." Laura stiffened. Mark's jaw tensed. Emily's pulse quickened. They know. She pulled out the folded newspaper and laid it flat on the table. "Madeline Brooks," she said, her voice steady. "She went missing 10 years ago. She looks like me, exactly like me, but she doesn't have a scar." Her mother let out a sharp breath. "Emily, don't be ridiculous." Her father reached for the newspaper, but Emily slammed her hand down on it. "Number, tell me the truth." Mark ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "Sweetheart, you're getting worked up over nothing." But Emily saw it now, the way they refused to look at her, the way their voices wavered, uncertainty bleeding through their carefully crafted lies. "Where did I really come from?" Emily demanded. Neither of them answered, and in that moment, she knew everything was about to change. Emily Carter's hands trembled as she zipped up her overnight bag, her mind racing. She had to get out of this house. Ever since confronting her parents about the missing persons ad, their behavior had shifted. The nervous glances, the forced smiles, the way they had dodged her questions had all confirmed what she feared. They were hiding something. Something big. That's why she had decided to leave. Sarah, her best friend, had agreed to let her sleep over. It was the perfect excuse an innocent night at a friend's house. But really, Emily needed space to think, to figure out what to do next. She slung the bag over her shoulder and took a deep breath before heading downstairs. Mark and Laura were waiting in the living room, their faces unreadable. "I'm ready," Emily said, gripping the strap of her bag tightly. "I'll just take the bus." Mark exchanged a quick glance with Laura before shaking his head. "It's getting late. We'll drive you." Emily hesitated. "I don't mind taking the bus." "No," her mother interrupted, forcing a smile. "It's safer if we take you." A chill ran down Emily's spine. There was something off about the way she said it. Still, she nodded, pretending to agree. The ride was quiet, too quiet. Mark drove while Laura sat beside him, her fingers fidgeting in her lap. Emily stared out the window, expecting to recognize the familiar turns towards Sarah's house. But the streets began to change. Her stomach twisted as she realized something was wrong. "This isn't the way to Sarah's," she said, her voice wary. Mark's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "We thought we'd take a detour," he said casually. "Spend some time together." As a family, Emily's heart pounded. Her mother turned in her seat, offering a small, unconvincing smile. "You've been so stressed lately, sweetheart. We just wanted to get away for a little while. Relax." Number, no, no, no. Emily's fingers dug into the fabric of her jeans. They were lying. She reached for her phone in her pocket, but before she could unlock it, a wave of dizziness hit her. Her eyelids suddenly felt heavy. She tried to fight it, but her vision blurred. The water. The warm glass of water her mother had given her before they left. Panic surged through her as she realized too late they had drugged her. "Why?" Her words slurred as darkness clouded the edges of her vision. Laura's voice was the last thing she heard before the world slipped away. "It's for your own good, Emily. Emily woke up with a jolt. Her body felt sluggish, her head pounding. The air smelled different, damp, earthy. She wasn't in Sarah's house. She wasn't in her own house. She was somewhere else. Blinking through the haze, she took in her surroundings. A small space, cramped, a bed, a tiny window. Her heart stopped as realization sank in. She was in the camper, the one they used for road trips, the one parked deep in the woods. She scrambled upright, her pulse hammering. Through the window, she saw nothing but trees, no houses, no roads, no way out. Her breath came in short gasps as she heard movement. Then a voice. Her mother. "You're awake." Emily turned slowly as Laura stepped inside, guilt and sadness written all over her face. What did you do to me?" Emily whispered. Laura sighed. "We had no choice, sweetheart. You were getting too close to the truth." Emily's stomach dropped. The truth. Her parents had kidnapped her, and now they were trying to keep her from ever finding out. Emily Carter's pulse thundered in her ears. The walls of the camper felt like they were closing in, trapping her inside the nightmare she never saw coming. Her mother, Laura, stood by the door, her expression tense, eyes flickering with something between guilt and desperation. Her father, Mark, sat on the edge of the small camper bed, rubbing his temples like a man struggling to find the right words. But Emily didn't need words. She already knew. Her parents had drugged her, kidnapped her, and now they were trying to keep her away from the truth. Her hands curled into fists. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "My whole life, you've lied to me." Laura stepped forward cautiously like she was approaching a wild animal. "Sweetheart, we only did what was best for you. You don't understand?" "Understand?" Emily's voice cracked as she pushed herself up from the bed, her legs wobbly beneath her. "You stole me from my real family. I saw the newspaper. I saw the picture." Mark's jaw clenched. "It's not that simple." Emily let out a hollow laugh. "Not that simple. I was a missing child, Dad. Someone's been looking for me all these years, and you..." Her breath caught, her voice shaking too hard to finish. Laura's eyes filled with tears. "We saved you, Emily." Emily staggered back like she had been slapped. "Save me? From what?" Mark exhaled sharply, his fingers gripping his knees. "You don't know what kind of life you would have had. You were left in an orphanage, abandoned. No real family, no one to protect you. We took you in. We gave you a home." Emily's throat tightened. No real family? That wasn't true. She thought of Madeline Brooks, the girl in the missing person ad, the girl who looked exactly like her. And she thought of the number in the newspaper, the one she had texted. A sudden, horrible realization struck her. Her phone. She shoved her hand into her pocket. Empty. Her head snapped up. "Where's my phone?" Neither of them answered. Emily spun toward the tiny counter, searching, heart hammering. She yanked open drawers, rifled through bags. Nothing. Then she saw it. A shattered screen. The remains of her phone lay on the camper floor, completely destroyed. A ragged breath tore from her lungs. "No," she whispered. She turned on her father. "You smashed it?" Her voice rose in fury. "You didn't just take it, you smashed it?" Mark's expression was unreadable. "You left us no choice." Emily's hands shook with rage. "You're trying to cut me off. From everyone. From the truth," Laura's voice wavered. "Emily, please!" A sudden knock at the camper door. The air froze. Everyone turned toward the sound. Emily's heart leapt into her throat. A gruff voice came from outside. "Everything all right in there? We don't usually see folks out here this time of year." The campground manager. Emily's chance. Before either of her parents could react, she bolted. She wrenched open the door and stumbled outside, sucking in the crisp night air. The manager, an older man with a weathered face, blinked at her in surprise. "Miss, are you okay?" Emily's voice tore through the night. "Help me! Call 911! They kidnapped me! They're not my real parents!" The campground manager's face paled. His gaze darted between Emily and her parents, who had rushed to the door. Mark held up his hands. "Now, hang on, it's not what you think." But the manager stepped back, already reaching for his radio. A new sound cut through the silent sirens. Emily's knees nearly buckled with relief. Her mother's face crumbled in horror. "Emily, please!" But it was too late. Red and blue lights flashed through the trees, and Emily knew at last that she was free. Emily Carter sat in the cold, sterile interview room of the police station, her heart still racing from the events of the night. The adrenaline hadn't faded, and she wasn't sure when it would. The weight of everything, the truth, the betrayal, the realization that her life had been a lie settled heavily on her shoulders. Across from her, an officer named Detective Monroe was speaking in a calm, steady voice, but Emily's mind kept drifting. Her parents not her parents Mark and Laura Carter, had been arrested. Right now, they were somewhere in this building, in handcuffs, answering for what they had done. She wasn't sure how to feel. Despite everything, despite the lies and the kidnapping, she still felt a painful tug in her chest when she thought of them. They had raised her, loved her, taught her how to ride a bike, packed her school lunches, kissed her forehead when she had nightmares. And yet, none of it was real. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. The door opened and a woman walked in. Emily's breath caught. She looked familiar, too familiar. The same red hair, the same green eyes. The woman's face crumpled with emotion as she whispered, "Jenny." Emily's entire body went still. Jenny. That name. She had seen it in the newspaper. Madeleine Brooks was her real name, and the person standing in front of her. This was her sister. The woman rushed forward, and before Emily could even process it, she was wrapped in a tight, trembling hug. Emily's voice cracked. She didn't know what to say. The woman pulled back just enough to look at her, tears streaking down her face. "I'm Samantha. I'm your sister. I've been looking for you for 10 years. Emily felt like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. 10 years. Samantha had been searching for her for 10 whole years. The missing persons ads, the contact number, it was all her. A lump formed in Emily's throat. I don't remember," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't remember anything before them." Samantha nodded through her tears. "It's okay," she said softly, cupping Emily's face gently. "We have time now. We're together now." Emily let out a shaky breath. For the first time since this nightmare started, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Detective Monroe cleared his throat. "We'll run a DNA test for confirmation, but based on the records and the circumstances, it's safe to say Emily Jenny has been found." Samantha gripped Emily's hands tightly, as if afraid to let go. Emily's heart still ached. The memories of her past life, of Mark and Laura, would never fully disappear. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't living in someone else's lie. She was home. Emily Carter, no. Jenny Brooks stood at the edge of her new bedroom, gripping the strap of her backpack so tightly her knuckles turned white. Everything felt unreal. The past few days had been a blur. After the DNA test confirmed her identity, after the police formally charged Mark and Laura Carter with kidnapping, after the media got hold of the story, she had been placed in the custody of her real sister, Samantha. Now, she was here, standing in Samantha's apartment, starting over. Her sister walked in behind her, setting down a bag of takeout on the small dining table. "I hope you like Thai food," Samantha said, giving her a soft smile. Emily Jenny nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think so." Samantha's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly masked it. She had been so patient, so careful with her, not wanting to push too hard. But Jenny could see the longing in her eyes, the desperate hope that she would remember something, anything about their life together before she was taken. But the truth was, she didn't. Her memories before the age of 3 were blank. And as much as she wanted to feel that instant connection, to feel like she had finally found where she belonged, she didn't. Not yet. Samantha must have sensed her hesitation because she cleared her throat and gestured toward the small bedroom down the hall. "I set up your room. You can decorate it however you want." Jenny hesitated before stepping inside. The walls were bare except for a single framed photo sitting on the nightstand. She moved closer, her heart pounding. It was a picture of 2 little girls. One was about 8 years old, with messy red hair and bright green eyes, Samantha. The other was a toddler with chubby cheeks and an innocent grin, clutching a stuffed bunny. Jenny traced her fingers over the toddler's face. Her face. Tears burned behind her eyes. This was proof. Undeniable proof that she had once belonged somewhere else. that she had once been loved by someone else. Samantha's voice was soft behind her. "You used to carry that bunny everywhere. I think I still have it somewhere in storage." Jenny swallowed hard. "I don't remember." She felt a hand on her shoulder, warm, steady. "That's okay. We have time." Jenny nodded, but deep inside, she wasn't sure how to move forward. Who was she now? Jenny Brooks, the girl who was taken? Or Emily Carter, the girl who had been raised by kidnappers? She felt like she was trapped between two worlds, one she had never known and one she could never go back to. And yet, for the first time, she had a choice, a real future. She turned to her sister, offering a small but real smile. "I think I'd like to see that bunny." Samantha's eyes lit up. For the first time, Jenny felt like maybe she was home. Jenny Brooks sat on the small balcony of her sister's apartment, staring out at the city skyline as the evening breeze played with her hair. It had been 2 weeks since she learned the truth. 2 weeks since the people she had called mom and dad were arrested. 2 weeks since she found out she wasn't Emily Carter at all, she was a missing child, stolen from her real family a decade ago. Even now, she wasn't sure who she was supposed to be. The past felt like a dream she had woken up from too suddenly, leaving her dazed and lost. Every morning, she still expected to hear Mark and Laura's voices, smell the coffee brewing in the kitchen, hear the hum of familiar routines. But instead, she woke up in a new bed, in a new life, in a home that belonged to a stranger who called herself her sister. A sister she didn't remember. Samantha stepped out onto the balcony, handing her a cup of hot chocolate. Jenny took it gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warmth. "Couldn't sleep?" Samantha asked, leaning against the railing beside her. Jenny shook her head. "Too much on my mind?" Samantha nodded as if she understood. And maybe she did. Jenny hesitated before finally saying what had been weighing on her. "I don't know how to feel about them." She didn't have to say who. Samantha already knew. "The Carters?" her sister asked softly. Jenny nodded, staring down at her cup. "They stole me, lied to me, but they also raised me, took care of me, loved me. I don't know if I should hate them or..." She broke off, frustration bubbling in her chest. "I don't know anything anymore." Samantha was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You don't have to choose." Jenny looked up, confused. "You don't have to hate them, but you don't have to forgive them either," Samantha explained. "You're allowed to feel everything, the anger, the sadness, the confusion. There's no right way to deal with this, Jenny." Jenny exhaled shakily, her grip tightening around her mug. "I don't even know if I want to be Jenny." She let out a bitter laugh. "I don't even know how to be her." Samantha turned toward her fully, her green eyes filled with nothing but understanding. "Then don't be." Jenny frowned. "What?" "You don't have to be Emily Carter or Jenny Brooks," Samantha said gently. "You just have to be you." Jenny blinked, her throat tightening. She had spent so much time trying to figure out which version of herself she was supposed to be that she never considered she could just be something new, something that was entirely her own. For the first time in weeks, the weight on her chest felt lighter. She wasn't there yet. Maybe she wouldn't be for a long time, but she was moving forward, and for now, that was enough. Life has a way of throwing unexpected truths at us, forcing us to question everything we thought we knew. Jenny's story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to face painful truths, process deep betrayals, and still move forward. One of the most powerful lessons her journey teaches us is that our past does not define us. While our experiences shape us, we always have the power to redefine who we are. This story also highlights the complexity of emotions, how love and betrayal can coexist, how anger and grief don't have to cancel out gratitude. Healing is not about choosing one emotion over the other. It's about allowing ourselves to feel everything without guilt. Most importantly, Jenny's story reminds us that family is more than biology or history. It's about the people who stand by us, fight for us, and accept us for who we are. In a world where identities can be questioned and truths can be painful, the most important thing is to embrace who we choose to become. No matter where we come from, we are always in control of our own future. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one.